Jonathan Taylor and James Cook are creeping into top 3 fantasy running back territory, while Ashton, Jeanty, and Omarion Hampton are falling far down the ranks. We reveal our Week 3 running back fantasy rankings on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every moment count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, today we are getting into our running back rankings for week 3. We did our quarterbacks and tight ends on yesterday's show, so if you missed that, go listen to it. We'll hop right into this and start talking about our top 12 running backs. Right at the top, I have the usual suspects of Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley. You have them all up there too in your Barkley at number 3, Bijan at 2, and Christian McCaffrey at 4. But who you have at the top over all of those guys, and I love this call by you, is Jonathan Taylor going up against the Titans. So tell me why you love him so much to have him at your number 1 spot this week.
Yeah, so far he's the NFL's leading rusher. He's been spectacular. He's also getting involved. As we said, there was not a lot of options here in the passing game out of the backfield. So he's been prominent in that role. This offense is humming along. The offensive line is playing really well, despite losing some guys up front, including Ryan Kelly and Will Fries. But they're really good up front against the run-stopping teams. They can move them out of the way. The Titans have not been good against the run early. They kind of let Denver have some big plays there with R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins. And then last week, look, the Rams were doing it with the passing game, but they weren't all that impressive overall, the Titans up front. They have Jeffrey Simmons, but not much else. The way the Colts are going, and keep in mind, Jonathan Taylor used to be just an absolute nemesis for the Titans. So I think now they can kind of smell, hey, we might be the favorites in the AFC South, the way things are going with the Texans at 0-2. I think they're definitely playing some inspired football in honor of their late owner, Jim Irsay. You can see that. So I think that's going to add a little extra pep in their step. And you also figure the game script should be positive for the Colts, where he can still get the carries in the second half. So Taylor's look great. I mean, I look at him, it looks like sometimes it takes a while before you can shake off these injuries that have piled up for a couple years. He kind of looks like that, right? Where the fresh legs are back, everything is there. And I think you have to say, when you have a competent quarterback in Daniel Jones and he's executing the offense, you're going to be also producing more. And again, I love Taylor's all-around role right now we're seeing from Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's been impressive. You want him to get rushing touchdowns because Daniel Jones keeps taking those. He doesn't have one yet. But for the fact that he's the running back 3 in fantasy points on the season without a rushing touchdown, and 2 guys ahead of him have 3 rushing touchdowns on the year, that's saying something and showing how much potential he has. And, he's just getting it done with all that work. Now, at number 4, I have James Cook. You have him at number 7, but he's climbing up rankings for sure. He is the RB1 right now in fantasy through 2 weeks. He had a massive week 2, a really solid week 1, 18.7 points in half PPR in week 1, 26 points in week 2, already has 3 touchdowns on the year. And this Bills offense is just going to keep rolling, and they're against Miami this week. So I won't be surprised again if he puts up another 25-point game and scores a couple touchdowns. So James Cook is looking like an excellent draft pick this year.
Yeah, you want to get them all early because this game could get out of hand, much like the Jets game. And look, he still came through that blowout and they were using him and all that. But when you look at it, I mean, this is a rare situation. We're giving the guy the contract before the season. It alleviated some concerns, right? He's not going in worrying about that. It's not pressing. He's just going out there, look, probably motivated to show that he was worth it for that big contract that he had. So I think that was a big deal. And just James Cook getting that out of the way. Now you're seeing, look, he's the man. I mean, they've seen him as a complete guy at this point. I mean, Ray Davis, I mean, you just hold on to him maybe at some point. They'll use him. and probably just a premium handcuff at this point. But it's been the James Cook show. Look, ever since the transition to the Joe Brady offense has happened, Cook has seen a larger and larger role now. He's getting the touchdowns. So, look, it's not always the same for Josh Allen and Saquon Barkley. They're not going to keep pilfering that many levels of touchdowns. And maybe we're seeing that little bit of a change there to bring Allen down to earth and Cook really going all the way up.
At number 5, we both have Derrick Henry. I get it. He disappointed you all last week. He had a couple of those games last year too, right? Where he just disappeared. He's going to be fine. You plug him in every week. At number 6, you have Jahmyr Gibbs. I have him at 7. Jonathan Taylor sitting there at 6 for me, but I'll probably end up actually moving him up. I think you talked me into that before we get to Sunday. And then at number 8 is where things get interesting for our rankings, because you have Alvin Kamara all the way at number 8. And you know what? I might be too low on him. I am a running back 21 on the week against the Seahawks. He was a running back 18 in fantasy points in week 1, running back 21 in week 2. But he did have a pretty solid game with a ton of those touchdowns are hard to come by in the Saints offense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Seahawks, if you're going to target a team that cannot cover backs out of the backfield, I mean, you had 2 of the premier guys who do that, right? Early in the season, Christian McCaffrey, and just looking at what he was able to do, the Seahawks just can't do this. And then Jaylen Warren actually had a big receiving game and kind of saved his fantasy value. We thought he's going to do that. So then I get Alvin Kamara, who's basically seeing ridiculous volume here. Basically, this Spencer Rattler offense is a lot of Alvin Kamara, a lot of Juwan Johnson. And we said that, right? I was talking about how it was better for Taylor and Tyler Warren if Daniel Jones started, because he's going to take the checkdowns, shorter passes. It was going to be better for Kamara and Juwan Johnson if Rattler started. And he's been decent enough to keep the job. That's what we want. We don't want to hear anything about Tyler Shuck taking over, just a deep thrower. We want these guys to check down. So I could see Alvin Kamara in a scenario with his volume against the Seahawks where he has 10 grabs in this game. It would not surprise me. And then a very good chance to score. The Seahawks defense is not exactly shut down. I mean, last week was a bit fluky with the things that happened and how they got the lead and were able to pull away from the Steelers. So I'm not scared of the Seahawks defense whatsoever. Maybe their pass defense, I think you can say that with DJ Reed and just some of the things that they've done, maybe a little bit better against the pass, but against the run and covering backs out of the backfield, still very vulnerable defense.
Now, I have Bucky Irving at 8. You have him at 9. I know Rachaad White stole his touchdown. Irving's got to score a rushing touchdown, but he still looks good out there, right? Where he's still going to stay in our top 10. Hopefully he starts getting those rushing touchdowns, but getting that work in the receiving game is also really nice. 6 for 50. He gets the Jets this week, and talking about Cook just went off on them, right? Jaylen Warren in week 1 had a solid game as well, especially as a receiver and getting that receiving touchdown. So hopefully Bucky Irving can find the end zone this week. Josh Jacobs, of course, has been solid. He's going to stay there for me in my top 10. You have him 12. I have him 10. Tougher matchup against the Browns. Devin Achane has been fantastic. I have him at number 9. But the guy I really want to hit on really quick here is Javonte Williams. I have him at number 11. Yeah, a little bit lower on him. You have him at number 16, but I think even at 11 and 16, he probably should be ranked higher, right? He's the RB2 on the year. He's getting so much work, and he actually looks pretty decent. And the fact that he had 7 targets last week, I think, is eye-opening. So, if they do get behind, they'll utilize him as that pass-catching back. But it's him, and really, Miles Sanders comes in for a couple plays, but it's just Javonte Williams, and he doesn't actually look that like week 1. You're like, okay, it's mediocre, but week 2, he looked really good against that Giants defense.
Yeah, what's happening is the 3 Tylers are really making their presence known here. Guyton and Booker and Smith, they're all blocking really well, and Brian Schottenheimer is calling a very good, balanced play sheet here. And when you look at that, that's excellent, because Javonte Williams, look, sometimes you got to be patient. I mean, he had major knee injuries a couple years ago. Breece Hall, same thing. We had to be patient to see that type of talent. But you've seen that talent flash before. I mean, we were so high on him in the second year, but then the knee and all that kind of slowed him down, right? So I think you're manifesting the talent there that Javonte Williams was having at one point. So it's a really good, astute pickup by the Cowboys to see, look, he's a bargain guy that we can plug into our system. He has some upside because of his physical tools and skills in this offense. And look, I like the fact that this offense is pretty simple, right? Schottenheimer's kind of simplified it. It's CeeDee Lamb, a lot of him. Jake Ferguson, throw to him. Throw some deep balls to George Pickens, and run the ball and throw it short to Javonte Williams. So I like how it's streamlined, this Cowboys offense. I also like how their defense stinks, so they're going to have to keep moving the ball. And I also like some of their matchups and their schedule. And yet again, a weak defense in the Chicago Bears this week. So again, he should go nuts in this particular game. Again, I think all the Cowboys, the principles you want to play this week, all the Bears that you can trust, you can do that. But it's a lot easier to trust the Cowboys because, again, they have 4 guys that you know are going to come through with Prescott.
We are going to get to the rest of our running back rankings, those tougher decisions. Like a lot of the guys we just talked about, yeah, you're throwing in. But we're going to get to the tougher decisions for you right after we hear from a couple of our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Baker Mayfield notching yet another game-winning drive on national television on Monday Night Football. No one has proved his doubters wrong more than Mayfield over the last couple of seasons. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's for 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts in 1 minute, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't ever using. So canceling those alone saved me money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, let's get through the rest of our running back rankings. And 2 guys we did not mention in the first part of our show at the top of the rankings were Ashton, Jeanty, and Omarion Hampton, which Jeanty was drafted as what, a top 3, 4, 5 running back. In fantasy drafts, Omarion Hampton was climbing up boards in drafts with Najee Harris's injury and all the hype he was getting. But both of them have been highly, highly disappointing. I mean, they're averaging like pretty. I mean, they're not giving you any fantasy points that you need. So, what are you doing here with Ashton, Jeanty, and Omarion Hampton? Like Hampton, I think you might have to sit. Well, Jeanty, you keep kind of plugging in. Right now, I still have Jeanty at 13 for some reason. You have him at 18.
Yeah, I mean, the matchup is not so easy. The Commanders have actually been decent against the run early. They contained Saquon Barkley. I know a lot of the running they gave up there in that first game there was, or I'm sorry, just looking at the Commanders, I think they are kind of mid-tier defense, but they can slow down the run. So something to look at where with them. And I think the other thing you look at is where's the Raiders' rest of the offense, right? It's a little bit inconsistent with Geno Smith at the helm. I mean, they were okay in week 1. He scored a touchdown, but the running game wasn't there, right? Against the Patriots, and the next week, the Chargers, I mean, Geno had the interceptions. They weren't getting the opportunities. Then on the other side of that same game, Omarion Hampton was not close to leading rusher. I mean, you had Justin Herbert lead the team, and then you had Najee Harris see some key touches in that game. So I don't know where we're going, but looking down the line, I mean, these guys we were into, right? Ashton Jeanty, Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson. I don't want to mention what he did to screw up his team that didn't even involve the running game. And then we had Ja'Cory Croskey Merritt right now looks like the best start of all these rookies. This is classic NFL, right? Classic. We see all these higher drafted rookies, and the 7th round guy is in the best position to score. So I don't know. I got to temper my expectations. I think you can sit Hampton if you have a better option. I mean, look, it's the Broncos. The Broncos have been a little bit vulnerable against the run, but it's not that. It's how many touches Hampton's going to get, how effective this Chargers running game can be with Harris and Herbert having to do some things there on the ground. And look, the Raiders road matchup, maybe Tom Brady scouted the Commanders and said how they could run better with Jeanty, but it's not there so far. So again, I have to say, like, I think I'm into Kroenke Merritt a lot more this week than these other guys because he's got the better matchup against the Raiders. He's at home. There's no Austin Eckler. So, again, funny how things work out where the first rounders are less inspiring right now than the 7th round running back. That's how talent and opportunity goes in the NFL.
And I do think both will turn it around, right? By mid-season, especially Jeanty. But I mean, both of them lost a ton of snaps from week 1 to week 2. They both played over 80% of their team snaps in week 1. That dropped down to 55% for Jeanty in week 2, 62% for Hampton. And then with Bill Kroenke, you expect those snaps to highly increase because Austin Eckler is now out for the year. So Bill Kroenke already has more rushing yards than these guys, despite playing barely no snaps compared to them. He had more rushing yards in week 1 than Jeanty or Hampton have on the season. So yeah, I like Bill Kroenke this week for sure. He's my running back 16. He's your running back 23. Obviously, like I still would go with Jeanty over Kroenke just because of the overall talent, but I like Kroenke more than Hampton this week. And Hampton is down our rankings at running back 26 and 30. So he's a flex option if you need him. But we're not excited to play him at all this week. Now, another guy I'm not excited to play, you're a little bit higher on him. It's Chase Brown. You have him at RB10. So you made your top 10 list that we didn't talk about earlier. I have him at running back 18. Even with Burrow, he wasn't producing, right? I mean, he's averaging 2.4 yards per carry this year, not getting the targets. And now you have Jake Browning back there. Minnesota, I mean, Bijan and Tyler Allgeier were able to run all over them, but I like the Bengals offensive line is so bad. So I don't know. I don't love Chase Brown moving forward until I can see him produce more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get it done. It's going to be unusual because they might struggle running, but he can make up for it catching the ball. Remember, they don't really have that consistent third option there. I know they've flashed with Noah Fant and Andreas Voss and some of these other guys, but they don't have really a third option here for Jake Browning. He might need to check down a little bit more. And again, the Vikings matchup is a lot more favorable. And the Browns, as we've learned the first 2 weeks, right? Not a great matchup for the running game. Like Chase Brown was shut down. Derrick Henry was shut down. So that's a terrible matchup. Then last week, I think you look at the Jaguars. I mean, the devastation of the Burrow injury where now they know that going into the Vikings game. So I think Chase Brown, things will be corrected. He's getting still the key touches on this team. So that's a good sign. But again, I think he'll be okay. He's going to have to fight through a funk a little bit, but they're going to have to get him going with Chase and Higgins if they really want to be successful and win games with Jake Browning.
Travis Etienne has been fantastic, and I have him at running back 12, running back 13. If you drafted him, you're so happy, and you are playing him. Now, 2 guys that we were not expected to be high on this early in the season is Jordan Mason and Jaylen Warren. And I have them at running back 14 and 15. I am higher on both of them than you. You have Jordan Mason pretty low, actually, at running back 31. Jaylen Warren, you have at running back 22. But I like both of their matchups quite a bit. I like their usage a ton. Aaron Jones is out on IR, and Mason was already playing a lot of snaps before Aaron Jones got out. So now he should be getting the targets too. He saw 3 targets last week. I'm not scared that JJ McCarthy's hurt and they're going to Carson Wentz because it's not like McCarthy has been playing good football, right? Hopefully he can get some touchdown opportunities, but I think Mason's a really good start against that Bengals defense where Etienne and Tootin both had a good game against them. And then the week prior, they played the Browns, but like Sampson still put up 13.3 fantasy points in half PPR against the Bengals. So, and then with Warren, he's just getting a ton of work, right? In the passing game on the ground. He looked really good in week 2. They said they want to get him even more involved in the offense. So I like both of these guys this week.
Yeah, and look, John Warren's a lesson in look. I was wanting Caleb Johnson. Maybe I wanted to will that to happen, and now he's probably doghoused a little bit for some of the stuff he did on special teams, so that's a problem, right? But look, John Warren, we also know can't hold up necessarily as a lead back. So while it's enjoyable here, like just stick with him, right? While he's in a good spot to produce, the Patriots matchup is fantastic. Now, Jordan Mason, full disclosure, that ranking, I'm going to probably move him up a little bit. That was before the Aaron Jones news came across, but I just know what the Vikings are going to do. They're going to be annoying with the guy that can never quit. It's Cam Akers. They'll get him involved somehow and keep this as a split. I'm not too inspired by the Vikings overall backfield and what I've seen so far. They are also having some offensive line issues with some injuries that have kind of crept in early here. So again, I want to temper my expectations for Mason because I think he needs that touchdown to really pay off because he definitely doesn't force his way into passing volume. That wasn't his role in San Francisco. So I think maybe out of necessity they needed him in that role, but I think Akers in general is a better pass catcher. So that could be annoying where he touches the ball in the situation. So I'm going to temper my expectations for Jordan Mason, but Jalen Warren, there's no reason to do that. He's a solid RB2 with his usage every week, and there's nothing scary about the New England matchup.
Yeah, there really is, especially in the passing game. I'm excited to see what the Steelers offense can do against the Patriots defense and what the Patriots offense can do against the Steelers defense because they're also really bad. At running back 17, I said Bill Krosky was at running back 16. At running back 17, I have J.K. Dobbins. 18, I had Chase Brown. James Conner at 19. And then I have Kenneth Walker at 20. I want to talk about the Seahawks backfield because, I mean, after week one, it looked like it was the Zach Charbonnet show. Right. And then in week 2, it was the Kenneth Walker show. So it's probably going to be a headache. You also have Walker ahead of Charbonnet at 24. You have Charbonnet at 27. I have Charbonnet at 28. The thing is, Charbonnet still played many more snaps than Walker in week 2. And, they got similar carries and touches. Actually, Charbonnet got more. It's just Charbonnet was so incredibly bad on his carries while Walker was so good. But in week 1, it was Walker who was so bad on his carries and Charbonnet who was the better one. So it's kind of just a toss-up here. I guess I prefer Walker because he does have that breakaway ability more than Charbonnet. And Saints matchup, this is a really good matchup. And Charbonnet doesn't have any receptions or even targets yet this season, while Walker will be involved there. And that's really, the Saints are getting kind of beat up in that area. So I lean Walker, but I think Charbonnet will get his usage as well.
I think the Seahawks are going to make our life difficult, and every time we rank Walker ahead of Charbonnet, Charbonnet is going to be better. Every time we rank Charbonnet ahead of Walker, Charbonnet is going to be the better play. Now, it's just really hard to just figure this thing out. Like, there's not really a rhyme or reason, like in terms of the volume versus the production. The first 2 games, right? They're actually similar styled in many ways. I think maybe Walker's a bit motivated that his job was maybe on the line and Charbonnet was getting all the buzz. So this is going to be very frustrating. But I was going to say the volume, the intended volume by the Seahawks is going to be very high, right? And they should get the volume they want because they're playing the Saints at home and they should have a positive game script. So when we know there's enough to go around for both backs and the matchup is good, I think you go there. Now, this is hard Saints matchup because they struggled against with backs that catch early in the facing half of the NFC West, but they've been okay against the run. So it's going to be a mixed bag. You're just going to have to hope for the best, and really it might come down to who finds the end zone of these two in that certain situation. That's not always the best thing where you're hoping for a touchdown.
Yeah, it definitely could be a headache. And another backfield that's a headache is the Patriots, and we're going to talk about them. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson looked good in week 2. Do you roll with him in a good matchup against the Steelers? And then we'll get through the rest of our running back rankings right after we take a quick break.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is here all the way into week 3, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff this weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's a great deal here for you. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keep an eye on your fantasy lineup and how those guys are doing. Quick, easy, and best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays, Thursdays as well. There'll be a game tomorrow, as we know, on TNF between the Dolphins and Bills. So another way to get in on the action all weekend long, starting on Thursday, ending on Monday night. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by using the FanDuel.com entry and visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. FanDuel, get in on the action ahead of Week 3. All right, Michelle, it is time to close the show. Another backfield that is giving us headaches. It's the New England Patriots. These guys just do this all the time. Like certain coordinators, like if their last name is Shanahan, they're going to do this to us. If they're Kubiak, they're going to do this for us. And Josh McDaniels is also going to do this to us. Mike McDaniels giving us other problems. But Josh McDaniels with this backfield, I knew this was going to happen. It's back to the old Patriots ways of not knowing exactly who's going to touch the ball.
Yeah, and I think it's more Mike Vrabel, too, being just a stubborn head coach and wanting the rookie to earn his snaps. Now, there is, reports saying, and tape saying Henderson's struggling at pass protection, right? So if you do struggle at pass protection, you have a younger quarterback back there. I get it. You can't be out in the field. But that was never an issue at Ohio State. So hopefully he can figure that out sooner rather than later. He is so clearly the best back. I know Ramondre Stevenson had a good game, had that really nice catch actually down the field in week 2. I still think Henderson's their best weapon. So hopefully he can get more work. But yeah, in week 2, his snaps didn't increase at all. So Henderson, even though it's a good matchup, you got to keep him on the bench till you see more. And Ramondre, he's getting a ton of work, got 18 carries so far on the season. So I guess not a ton of work, but he's still the clear lead back. He's getting the target. So I think against the Steelers, he is a playable guy. I have him at running back 23. You have him at running back 28. Now I'm going to move on to these other running backs that are, producing somewhat, but, not like super exciting to plug into your lineup. And that's J.K. Dobbins, Tony Pollard, and DeAndre Swift. Now, how would you rank these guys? Dobbins gets the Chargers this week, who have shut down all the running backs they faced. Tony Pollard gets the Colts, and then DeAndre Swift gets the Cowboys. How would you rank them for week 2 or week 3?
Yeah, I think Tony Pollard is the easy choice here of the guy that I'm going to go in the top here, just because he's been rather productive. Look, the Colts defense is better in certain ways, but it's not a shutdown defense. They did give up some numbers to Devon Achane in first game of the season. The Broncos, look, they did their best, but J.K. Dobbins got the pay dirt there in that game. So you can run and produce out of the backfield against the Colts. So that's good news here for Tony Pollard. Look, he's a key factor of their offense. It's basically going through Cam Ward and Alec Imanor and now Tony Pollard, right? This offense is not doing other things. And look, he's coming off a good game. And Pollard is going to see the volume there with no Tyjae Spears. So I think he's a solid, top 20 play every week. Now, the other guys, it's pretty close. I have Swift at 25. I have Dobbins at 26. Look, Swift is getting the volume. Will that continue to happen? I'm not sure, but I know with the Cowboys matchup, if you can't get going there, it's over. I think they have to look at some other options here. So the matchup is just so good. And the same thing in the reverse with J.K. Dobbins. The matchup is bad. It's not the greatest, right, with the Chargers. Jeanty just struggled in that matchup. But when you look at that, it's also a revenge game. And he's going to be motivated to run well against a team that kind of discarded him. Look, just wanted to move on with saying, no, we don't want Dobbins and Gus Edwards. We want to move on with Hampton and Harris. So there's going to be a little bit of motivation there for him, J.K. Dobbins. So he'll run hard. Right now, R.J. Harvey is too inconsistent with his role to even go there. So, look, I get too excited by rookies, and that's one of my weaknesses in fantasy, and then coach speak and all this stuff. Look, but you just have to go where the ball is going right now. So right now it's going to the veterans in most of these situations.
Yeah, I have Dobbins ranked well ahead of Pollard and Swift. So I would go with him even in the tough matchup. He's getting the work. He's scoring fantasy points as well. 13.8 and 15 fantasy points in the first 2 games and half PPR. So he's been really solid, and he gets the work around the goal line, has a touchdown in both games, and he's on the best offense out of these, right? So, and then I have DeAndre Swift and Pollard ranked back to back, with Swift at 29 and Pollard at 30. The thing with Pollard is that, yeah, he's getting a ton of carries, but he has 2 targets on the season, 1 reception, right? He's not getting the receptions, and the team isn't getting any goal line opportunities. So he has 0 rushing touchdowns. So that's why I'm off of him. Swift has a nice matchup he'll get to work. So I think he's a fine play. Now, 2 rookies here have taken over their backfield a bit. Quinshon Judkins for the Browns, first NFL game, didn't practice at all with the team this summer, and he immediately leads the team in carries and rushing yards, gets 3 targets as well. And then you have Cam Scadaboo take over Tyrone Tracy in that backfield for the Giants. However, both have very, very hard matchups this week, especially Judkins going up against the Packers. So I'm not excited to plug in either of these guys. I think they're playable because I think they'll get work, but I don't expect big games.
See, when we're talking about promising offenses and the splits here, like the Seahawks have some upside, the Patriots have some upside, the Broncos, like it's easier to get into that, right? But if
the Giants have, I mean, after week 2, the Giants clearly have some upside.
Yeah, it's fine. But that could be more the product of playing the Cowboys, which they're not doing again this week. They're playing the Chiefs in primetime. I think the Chiefs defense is going to come out flying around, make plays, and the Packers defense on the other side. I'm going to pivot off these guys. I can't feel good about using them as a flex. I'm going to watch the games carefully, right, to see the kind of production that they have in these tougher matchups to make sure that they hold the jobs, and seeing kind of Judkins get some clarity on what his role is going to be. Scadaboo, I think, has a little bit more juice to me just because, again, he's probably going to get the majority of the key touches all around here than Tracy, but I think they could make it and continue to make it a bit of a committee approach with their backs in Cleveland.
Now, lastly here, I do think if you're in desperation mode and you need to pick up a guy to play, I do think Tyler Allgeier is playable this week as a desperation flex play, or like you don't have a running back 2 because you waited a long time to draft running backs or whatever, you drafted bad running backs. It's against the Panthers, a terrible, terrible run defense. We expect the Falcons to be able to beat up on the Panthers, right? And when the Falcons beat up on the Vikings last week, they went to Tyler Allgeier at the end of the game, not giving, because why would you utilize Bijan Robinson and get him more tired, right? So Allgeier last week, I mean, he got the touchdown which was very annoying as a Bijan Robinson fantasy manager, but then also 16 carries, 76 yards, and a touchdown. So 14 and a half fantasy points and half PPR. And I can see a similar workload for him in this game if the Falcons can do what we expect against this Panthers defense, get a lead, get to run the ball a ton. I think both of these guys, obviously Bijan is my RB1 this week, but Allgeier is playable.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best handcuff in fantasy because there's some question marks. I mean, you probably can't get the true handcuff behind Jahmyr Gibbs because Dave Montgomery might be on your team or somebody else's team, and then the Eagles have complicated some things. So Tyler Allgeier is like, yeah, he would just be shooting up the boards and then every week play if something happened to Bijan Robinson. So now the consideration is, can he be flexed? I think in deeper leagues he can be, right? If he's getting the touches here, look, I don't expect the Falcons to be in such a positive game script. I don't think still they're all that good, right? Look at week 1, they were kind of just a mess there. I don't know if this is the real Falcons or that was a lot to do with the Vikings just kind of being inept last week. So keep that in mind. But I still think Allgeier is going to get touches. I mean, they need to get him the ball. They should be able to run the ball well in the Panthers. So the volume potential alone to supplement Robinson in the game should say, Allgeier, if you're desperate, definitely you can play him. Definitely some things you're going to have to worry about at running back where, look, a lot of people are struggling at RB2 and flex, and this is a good way to kind of address that this week.
That will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We have 2 more episodes for you to get you prepped for week 3. Tomorrow we'll be back with our wide receiver rankings. And then on Friday, we get into the deep sleepers and some daily fantasy talk that you can get involved in as well. So we'll talk to you then. Have a great night. Bye, y'all.